right, so we had a look at that, right? So now we're looking at the development of the placenta and the amnion, right? So we're really looking at the amnion for the most part, right? So following implantation, the outer layer of the blastocyst, which we know it to be the trophoblast, will differentiate into two layers. We know it's the trophoblast and the syncytotrophoblast, right? The syncytotrophoblast will extend with finger-like projections called the chorionic villi, right, into the paternal uterine tissue. These chorionic villi serve as the interface between the maternal blood supply and the developing embryo. Implantation of the blastocyst triggers changes in the endometrial lining of the uterus, right, leading to the formation of the decidua, right, a specialized layer of tissue that provides support for the development of the embryo, or the developing embryo, right, and decidua undergoes further differentiation into three regions: the decidua basalis, the decidua capsularis, and decidua parieentalis, right? So these are just different areas of this decidua that would actually just become parts of the greater structures that we're talking about. But I don't think you guys go into that for the decidua, so that's one of the things I'm telling you, that this PowerPoint is really detailed. I don't think you need to know the formation of the decidua. Alright? Blood vessels within the chorionic villi now, that's gonna develop because the current is villi, so we need to develop a blood source for the villi to actually have that fetal circulation going. So we develop that to connect to the fetal circulation, right? This allows for exchange of nutrients, gases, or whatever within the maternal bloodstream to go to the fetal bloodstream. So it allows that contact between the fetal and the maternal bloodstream, right? Um, mm, 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 mm. That's fine. Right, so the maternal blood flows into spaces called the intervillous spaces. Right, you guys should know that, right? So the intervillous space specifically, right? And then and the while fetal blood flows through the vessels right within the chorionic villi. So this arrangement ensures the efficient exchange of substances necessary for embryonic development, right? So we're establishing blood flow. That's what it's really about, right? That's really the placental circulation, right? Differentiation of the extraembryonic mesoderm. Right. So what we're talking about now is that there's a layer, right, of mesodermal tissue, right, derived from the inner mast cells. Remember, inner cell mass, right? So the cells that were inside the of the blastulus, right? They proliferate now and surround the amniotic cavity and yolk sac. Right? Yes, all mammals develop from a yolk sac. Therefore, we also develop from a yolk sac as well. It's an egg, so therefore it has a yolk sac in it when it develops. Right? So this layer of mesoderm contributes to the formation of the chorionic villi and development of blood vessels within the placenta. The amnion, no, the formation of the amnion. The amnion is a fluid-filled sac that surrounds and protects the developing embryo. So what it's gonna do is gonna form two layers of the cell, right? It's gonna call one is called an epiblast, derived from the inner cell mass, right? And then the amniotic ectoderm, derived from the extra or the extra embryonic ectoderm, right? So as the amniotic ectoderm expands, it fuses with the somatic mesoderm, right, meaning the regular mesoderm, the somatic mesoderm, forming the amniotic cavity. This cavity fills with amniotic fluid, providing a cushioning and protective environment for a developing embryo. So this is the formation of the amnion in mammals, specifically humans. All right. The maturation of the placenta now over the course of pregnancy, right, or gestation, we'd like to say, right? The placenta undergoes further development. So, further development, it's really development. It's all the grown parts of the placenta are gonna be already there at this time, but it's really more of maturation. So it goes through more maturation with continued growth of the chorionic villi and expansion of the fetal blood vessels, right? So this placenta plays a crucial role in providing oxygen, nutrients, developing fetus, removing waste products, and producing hormones necessary for pregnancy maintenance, right? So stuff like progesterone, it will not. The placenta will now take over progesterone production, because if progesterone goes down, then the metrium will kick out the embryo, and gone goes the gone is the pregnancy, I guess. All right. So we need to keep the progesterone up. Okay. So we have that there. This is what we were talking about. So the sperm goes into the secondary oocyte, and this becomes a zygote, right? Then you become a morula. Then you become a blastocyst with inner cell mass, right? Then the blastocyst, and you have a hypoblastocyst, right? And then right there, that cavity that the epiblast, right, makes, right, is the amniotic cavity, and it will start to divide, right, and take shape. All right. So that's what's happening there, and you could eventually end up into this structure here. Everything is fine thus far. So you got the amniotic fluid, um, sac, the placenta, and the chorion outside of it. The amnion and the placenta, right? So we're looking at the life support systems within life itself, right? I'm about to look at it. We're gonna look at ultrasound and stuff like that after this, though, but probably so probably after we finish module 2. Okay. So the X-ray embryonic membranes. So let's look at this. So we have the chorion, right? And then we're gonna have that layer of emptiness there. Then we're gonna have the amnion. Then we're gonna have the amniotic fluid there. The embryo is floating within there. The embryo is connected to the maternal blood supply via the umbilical cord, right? It also has a yolk sac there. Um, that helps with nutrients as well, right? Then we're gonna have the fetal portion of the placenta, the maternal portion of the placenta, on the chorion villi, all right? And then we have the general structure of the placenta itself. The umbilical cord comes in. We have the fetal vein and the fetal artery on one side within the fetal portion of the placenta, and then you have a maternal vein and maternal artery on the opposite side of the placenta. And then those branches, now the villi will be the chorion villi, and inside that space there will be the intervillous space, a blood-filled cavity. All right. Everything here should be really, really straightforward. All right. So we have that there. The allantois though, the allantois really is just it's a green thing here. We're gonna talk about the allantois, especially when we talk about, okay, we really don't really talk about the allantois a lot though, but usually in labeling they ask you to label like where the allantois is though. Um but what is the allantois for? Does anybody know? Does anyone know what that's for? So the allantois is there, right? What it generally do, right, is that any type of liquid waste, because gases are dissolved into the blood, liquid waste, right, provided by the embryo, right, that will collect there, right. So the function of the allantois is really to collect that, right, and it can actually facilitate gaseous exchange with the embryo as well. Right. Remember, those are what is going to the chorionic villi now. So those will contain both the waste, the nutrients, and those type of things that the embryo will be getting and that the mother will be passing on. All right. The function of the amnion now. The amnion is a fluid-filled membrane that encloses the embryo and acts as a shock absorber. Right. So meaning it protects the baby from physical damage. All right. It also regulates the fetus's temperature, right? And it's because water has a specific heat capacity. So because the specific heat capacity of water is so high, right? Then the temperature of the fetus won't change as much. Because water won't boil or won't freeze easily. So it should be fine. Alright? Similar to the placenta, it plays roles to a small extent in nutrient intake and waste transfer. Right, and then we know the amniotic fluid now is located inside can be located inside the fetus, right? The movement of food along the alimentary canal as well. It should be noted that the placenta also plays a role as a partially permeable barrier, preventing intermingling of fetal and maternal blood, and even offering some protection to maternal HIV. So it also offers some protection for that. That's the placenta really. Um, but for the amnion, no, the amnion helps with developing swallowing. So the you the fetus itself would actually swallow amniotic fluid and ingest it and swallow it. It helps develop their motor skills as it relates to those type of stuff, right? Preparing it for the outside world. The placenta, no, the placenta is used for nutrient and gas exchange. We know what that is about because it's about the blood supply, right? Exchanging the stuff from the maternal to the fetal blood supply. The endocrine function now, it produces human chorionic gonadotrophin, right? So what human chorionic gonadotrophin generally does, right? It's it does something, right? It helps to maintain the corpus luteum in the early stage of pregnancy, but that is how we use pregnancy tests, right? Because if human chorionic gonadotrophin can be detected, that means that the person will be pregnant. If it is not, then no. So that's what happens with the antibodies on the pregnancy tests, right? That's how you figure them out. I think that's unit 2, right? Unit 2 does that. They look at how those things work. And then for the immune protection, we spoke about the division of the permeability of the barrier between the mother and the fetus itself, right? And then waste removal. If it does gases and nutrient exchange, it must exchange waste as well. Temperature regulation, it helps that as well because the temperature, right, of the blood going to the fetus is regulated, right? So the placenta helps to regulate the fetal blood temperature, right, body temperature rather, by transferring heat between the maternal and fetal circulations. Because remember, it's encased in amniotic fluid, which is mostly water. It will drop the temperature of the fetus. So, right, the placenta helps regulate that temperature. And you have the barrier function, general barrier function, right? So it blocks the fetus from anything that may be fatal within the maternal bloodstream, right? So there are certain medications that the mother of the fetus must not be able to take depending on its permeability to the placental membrane, right? But generally, most medications, toxins, and pathogens cannot cross that barrier, right? So it prevents them from crossing that barrier into the blood supply of the fetus, right? So things like alcohol and certain drugs still can actually cross the membrane. So it depends on the chemical structures of these molecules, whether or not they can pass through those membranes based off of their characteristics as it relates to their polarity. Yes, I had to mention polarity. I can't get the chemistry out of it, right? So you have that, and it's still just generally a physical barrier to defend against any potential harm to the fetus. All right. Here are a list of hormones and their sources as well as the rules. That really helps here. Gonadotrophin comes from the hypothalamus. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone comes from the pituitary gland. That prolactin actually enables lactation, production of breast milk. That also comes from the pituitary gland. The estrogen, progesterone, testosterone as well comes from the gonads. Inhibin is only produced by testes, right? In this, in what we're talking about specifically, um, we're gonna have HPL, right? That is actually produced from the placenta. DMPA and progestin is synthetic, right? So it's actually birth control. So remember when we spoke about the fact that you can take pills and stuff like that to increase cervical mucus to prevent sperm from entering. It's actually a form of birth control. Human gonadotrophic hormone is produced by the blastocyst, right? All sort of stuff. All right. Any questions? Any concerns? Any emotional outbursts? Because if there are none, that is it.